Hey, spiritual extremists, it's Dr. Lloyd-Moffett at Halcyon and the Temple of the People again. And to continue that story a little bit, well, Helene Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott started this movement called Theosophy, and it was incredibly popular at the end of the 19th century. There was this idea that science and religion were going to come together, and the world would unify behind a single message that was at the heart of all religions. Um, and that went something beyond just what theology said or creed said, but it's some experience of the heart. In fact, one of the temple creeds is, one of the temple statements is, creeds disappear and hearts remain. And eventually, that movement splintered. One group of them, a group from Syracuse, went searching around to find convergence spots in the world. That is, moments where the spiritual energy are most profound. One of those might be something like Stonehenge, or Mount Shasta, or Uluru in Australia or Easter Island. And they discovered a place on the Central Coast, kind of near the dunes, and they named it Halcyon, which is a Greek story of when fair winds come. And they went to create a utopia here, all centered around creating a meta religion that could bring all humans together. Now, that movement eventually built a temple, and that's what's behind us. It's called the Blue Star Memorial Temple, and it was constructed in 1923 and 1924. We could spend all day with the symbolism. There is seven, the sacred number everywhere, 7 pillars, each 7 feet high, all the angles at 7 times 7 degrees. It's all over the place. But it's a beautifully simple and elegant building where they've held services every day at noon since 1924. And so this is the center of the worship for this community of Halcyon. Now, let's return to mysticism. So, mysticism mysticism says that it is the peak mystical experience, it's the peak spiritual experience for any given tradition. No matter what that tradition is, the peak experience is mystical, and that is something similar. And so, what people have tried to do is to look across cultures to see what are the common elements of the mystical experience. And one of the most famous attempts to do so was by a woman in the 1920s by the name of Evelyn Underhill. And she argued that the mystical experience has 5 common traits across cultures. So this would mean it wouldn't matter if you were Christian or Jewish or Muslim or a nature mystic, they're all the same. Um, and all of them reach the final culmination. So let's look at these. The first stage is awakening. Awakening means there's some point in your life where you come to the awareness that there's something more in the world, that it's as if your entire life has been spent searching for something, and then suddenly you wake up to spirituality. You come to realize that, hey, there is a lot more to life than just the mundane elements of going from here to here or building wealth or building connections, that there is a spiritual goal of life. And this is the most important thing, that all of a sudden your consciousness wakes up and says, I want a profound spiritual experience. Now, Underhill points out that most people never go through that awakening. Most people go through life without any sense of a profound desire for a deep spiritual experience. And they go through happy enough to have friends, a nice bottle of wine on the beach one day, happy enough just to muddle through life, and that's fine. But if you have that awakening moment, then there's nothing else you can think about, because you realize there's so much more to life than what most people have, and you desperately want that phase. So listen to the 15th century or 16th century mystic Teresa of Avila. She says, but when this most wealthy spouse, Christ, desires to enrich and comfort the bride still more, he draws her so close to him that she is like one who swoons from excess of pleasure and joy and seems to be suspended in those divine arms and drawn near to that sacred side and those divine breasts. Awakened from the sleep and heavily inebriation, she is like one amazed and stupefied. Then she lights a cigarette. No, I'm kidding. But there is this idea that, it is filled with pleasure, filled with desires, and that you come to think of nothing else in life because you realize everything else seems shallow. That's the first stage, which is awakening. Now let's go inside and look more at Evelyn Underhill's stages.